Welcome back to the Capes and Tights podcast right here on capesandtights.com. I'm your host, Justin Soderberg. This episode is once again brought to you by our friends over at Galactic Comics and Collectibles at galacticcomicsandcollectibles.com. We welcome Ashley Cullins to the podcast, who is an award-winning entertainment journalist with over a decade of experience. Ashley began her career as a broadcasting news, but quickly jumped to print. Her first book, Your Favorite Scary Movie, How the Scream Films Rewrote the Rules to Horror, hit shelves on August 19th from Dutton Books. We talked Scream and so much more about this with Ashley, but before you listen to this episode, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, all those places. You can rate, review, subscribe over on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you find your podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube. And as always, you can visit capesandtights.com for so much more, including a review of this book, Your Favorite Scary Movie. But this is author Ashley Cullins talking about the journey of making this book about Scream franchise right here on the Capes and Tights podcast. Enjoy, everyone. Welcome to the podcast, Ashley. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Yeah, it's cooling down. I live in Maine. It's cooling down. It was a little hot for a little while there, but we're doing well now. It's like 71 right now. Hoping, yeah, it was been crazy. I don't know. It's been a hot summer. It's been a really hot summer.
We are currently in Nashville, and it is, I think, 96 today and humid. So I'm very jealous.
It's been like I was telling someone else, a friend of mine, I'm like, I don't think it's been this hot in a long time in Maine. It's been like we get our stretches, like a 3-day stretch here and there of like 95-degree weather or whatever. But I think we've had like 3 or 4 of those this summer so far, of like 2 or 3 days of just really hot weather, and it's not fun. I don't like it. It's not something I want to do. But we're not here to talk about the weather. We're here to talk about your new book, Your Favorite Scary Movie. I'm not going to say the whole thing over and over and over again. It's a subtitle to it and all that stuff. But Your Favorite Scary Movie is a pretty easy way to explain this book. Your deep dive into Scream and the franchise that is. Let's get started by just this is your first book, but you've been in journalism and you've been writing and speaking on camera and things like that for a while. What made you, have you been a horror fan since a young kid, or how did your love for Scream start?
Scream came out when I was like, I guess almost old enough for it, right? Like I probably saw it younger than I should have. But I was a preteen and it was the 90s. So, it's not any worse than the Indiana Jones movies, I don't think.
No.
So I saw Scream about a million times and loved it and was obsessed. And just generally, I did like horror a lot as a teenager, especially once I got a little bit older and could go see things in theaters. There's just something fun about being scared, especially when you're that age and you're chasing adrenaline. And Scream, what I liked about it then and what I still like about it now is you're not only scared, it's a whodunit. So you're trying to figure it out and it's funny. So you get breaks from the terror, which to me is necessary for a viewing experience. Like I don't want to sit down and just be like for 2 hours. I like having layers and experiencing emotions other than fear. But yeah, I liked horror a lot as a teenager. I went through a period where I thought I didn't like horror as an adult until I started working on this book and going, oh, but I obviously still love Scream and I really loved Get Out and I like It Follows and I like, and there have been more movies since then. Sinners, obviously, although I'm not entirely convinced Sinners is horror, like that is the like just non-genre exceptional. Hard Eyes, really fun. So I do really enjoy horror. There are just certain things that are a little bit less my cup of tea, the things that are just like pure fear. And so I've learned a lot about that through the course of working on this. And I've also learned that horror people are the best people on the planet. They're just so nice.
It's so awesome because I read the your favorite scary movie about I would say now it's about a month, and right after that's like right after that, but I read a couple other. There was one about Halloween, and there was one that I read. It was called Why I Love Horror, and there were essays in it from horror authors of why they found their passion and found their career and found their way in horror. And one of the through lines that I mean, each story was different, but one of the through lines and threads that went through all 18 stories was the community and how the horror community as a whole is just like it doesn't matter who makes the movie, who makes the TV show, who makes the book. It's like they just want the next good horror story. They just want the next good thing. And then they're sharing it with people. Hey, I'll let you borrow the book. I'll let you borrow the movie. It's just like this weird thing. And I think the big thing to me is horror, yes, it's there to scare you at moments and things like that, but there's so many different sub-genres to horror, in my opinion. I mean, not this is not a knock on any other genre, but like romance, it's like romance. There's like sports romance and there's all this Western romance and things like that. But like, I don't know, there's like horror that has moments of horror in it, but then there's like really funny. And there's moments of drama and so on and so forth. So like that, I think that's one of the reasons why I think it's such a great rounded genre. And but yeah, it made me remind me of how much I liked the movie Scream by reading your book because of that. And I went back and watched. I've actually watched it twice since I read your
Love it.
book. Yeah, and I watched. I was actually before we started talking. I was actually had Scream 2 on my. I have a TV above me, and I was watching Scream 2
Nice.
on there too. It
Which
just
part?
remind. There was I was stopped at where did I was at? I stopped about halfway through, I think, right now. I can't see it now. It's off now. But yeah, it's Scream 2 is was so funny when they're in the classroom talking about sequels and they're chatting back and forth about how they're not good and so on and so forth. And people bring up the key ones like Godfather Part 2 and T2 and things like that. And I laugh because I'm like, Scream is so good, but Scream 2 is in that category in my opinion. Like one of those things. I don't think it's better than Scream, but it's one of those ones that holds up. It's like a sequel that actually was worth watching, and one of those ones you're not like, the first one was good. I don't need to watch the second one. It's so good
Yeah.
in that sense. But it's. I was talking to Brian McCauley, the author, who wrote a book recently called "Breathe In, Bleed Out," which is coming out right around this time. That it's been compared to Scream in their its solicitations and descriptions of the book because of the fact that it has this like self-awareness and the slight comedy in it and things like that. And that's what I loved about Scream. I think Scream is a horror movie for everybody. If you don't like horror movies, I think you'd like this movie. There's moments where you're gonna cringe, but there's moments where you're like, okay, this is a good whodunit mystery and so on and so forth. So I can see why a passion would get into writing this book, but there's got to be something. I mean, was it just that the story felt like it needed to be told, like this behind the scenes thing? You could be passionate and love something, but like, is there something about Scream specifically that was like, okay, there's enough to hear that it's a book, it's book worthy.
Yeah. So, like, you know how I am guessing we're probably around the same age, but do you know how, like, in the 90s, there were all of those stories about like actors and models getting like discovered at the mall?
Yes,
Like, they just
yes,
got
yeah,
like
yeah.
stumbled upon. So, I feel like the origins of this book are a little bit like that for
Mhm,
me. So, ahead of the 25th anniversary of the first movie, I
mhm,
pitched an oral history to the Hollywood Reporter. I was a business editor there. And I was like, hey, this is coming up. I love this movie. Like, I would love to do this. It was out of my typical beat, and I hadn't ever pitched anything like
mhm,
that before, but they said yes. And so I worked on this oral history. And after it came out, a few months later, I get this email from a literary agent, and it's just like the best email I've ever read in my life. And he convinced me to write a book. And like I'd always wanted to write a book. It was
yeah,
always something I saw myself doing at some point. But I also don't know when I would have taken that first
yeah.
step on my own. And so I was like extremely pregnant with my younger son at the time. And John, my agent, and I had a Zoom and we talked through it. And he was like, well, you've got a little bit going on.
Yeah.
So like take your time. And I was like, no, 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 no. You need to give me a deadline. If you don't
Yeah.
give me a deadline, it will never get done. And so I ended up doing the proposal while I was on maternity leave. And then my dogs are hanging out playing in
Yes,
the
yeah,
back. You
playing
probably
in the
can't
background.
hear them, but
No,
I'm
it's
sure you can
awesome.
see
It's entertaining for me.
them. So I wrote the proposal on maternity leave and literally finished the second revision the Friday before I went back to work on Monday. And a few months later, we took it out to publishers and we sold it. And then that was that. But like, yeah, I kind of feel like the writer equivalent of somebody who got discovered at a mall and put in their favorite show.
Yeah.
Like, I feel so grateful.
Mhm.
There was a lot of pressure because this is something that I care a lot about. And it's something that a lot of people care a lot about. So there was a little bit of the like, I can't screw this up. And like
Mhm.
the radio silence guys, Matt and Tyler, I talked to quite a bit about this because they had very similar feelings when they were taking on Scream 5. Like, we
Mhm.
love this thing, we can't ruin it. And so they, like, maybe more than anybody, understood how I was feeling about like needing to do this right.
Mhm.
And so it's just been kind of a wild, very surreal roller coaster.
Well, with the invention of the internet many years ago, we have the ability now to look up something. Well, actually, speaking of that, in Scream 2, there's a scene in the library where it looks extremely like Will Forte. Have you seen this thing? Well, Will Forte is it's a guy sitting at a computer across from Sydney, and it looks like Will Forte. So I Google, I'm like, wait, was Will Forte in Scream 2? He's not. Will has explained this on Twitter or X, whatever, that he's not actually in the movie. But I have the ability to quickly Google this. I have the ability to go online and look up this information, and I feel like I do that a lot nowadays with my passions or something I really enjoy, or like I go a deep dive into YouTube videos or whatever it may be on this thing. And I always felt like I love Scream. I have a Scream T-shirt on right now. I met but I never actually did that. I never actually went online and like Googled and was like, well, how did it get made the first thing? What was the original name of the movie? All that stuff. And so this book gave me that, like I'm like, why didn't I do this? And I'm so glad I didn't because I learned so much by reading your book. But it also wasn't just I wasn't reading an encyclopedia about Scream. I wasn't reading like, okay, this is the fact. This is when it was made. This is when it came out. There was some sort of you could tell there was it was almost like a love letter. It was almost like you wanted to pour this out. I want to tell everybody about it, but you had this like you could seem that you cared. This wasn't a hired job to tell a story about Albert Einstein. Like you actually had this way of telling the story about how it seemed like you actually were passionate about it. And I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you. That means a lot. Like, I didn't want to make bar trivia.
Yeah.
And so I just decided to lean into what the people I was talking to thought was most important.
Hmm.
Like, when you're thinking back on your experience working on these movies, what memories come back to you? Tell me about it. And I approached it that way because
Hmm.
I really wanted to bring through like the humanity of making these
Hmm.
movies because it's their story. It's not my story. That's one of the I know you're not supposed to read the reviews, or if you do, you're not supposed to acknowledge that you read the reviews. But one of the things that people have criticized, and it's totally fair, is that there is a lot more of other people in it than there is of me.
Hmm.
And I get that. I understand it. It's just not my style, right? Because it's not my I'm not what's important here. So I all of the emphasis is on the people who actually matter, and I tried to add, what I could from the perspective of somebody who has been watching these franchise and
Hmm.
loving these movies and bring it all together.
Hmm.
Like, I'm the connective tissue, not the soul.
Well,
If for
well, no
lack of a
offense.
less obnoxious.
Yes. Well, no offense to you at all, but like, do you think that person who's complaining about it not being about you would have read it if they, like I said, no offense to you, but like, do I really know who Ashley Collins was before I read this
Oh,
book? Probably not. So why would I have cared so much about what you actually personally think about it more than what some of the people who made these movies or acted in these movies would care about? It's an interesting complaint. I guess if that's the complaint, Ashley, you're good.
Yeah, who's this jerk?
Yeah, it's
She
like,
needs to talk less. I want to hear from the people who she interviewed. Like,
but I'm saying like you probably have people who have followed your reporting over the years and your journalism. Like it's people who are like, oh, I want to hear what Ashley has to say. But like it's true. Like I having the small bits and pieces of your passion behind this project, but like learning a lot from this or getting quotes or people talking about Wes or things like that. That's what made the book there. But like I said, but the way it was put together was like a love letter from not just you, but from everybody who worked on this franchise over the years. So just I say this franchise over the years, it's still going. So it's one of the cool things too. It's like you almost could have a part two of this in a couple of years. If they make a couple more movies, you could add like a little expanded edition version of this book because it's not ended. It hasn't ended yet. It's one of those, it's not Back to the Future, where there's been three films and we're done, kind of thing. This is like a continuing thing, and so yeah, no, I'm glad it wasn't all about you. No offense.
no, not taken.
I don't care what you have to say, Ashley. No,
I am
it's true.
hilarious. It would have been a
It would have
great
been really
book. I'm
funny.
just
Yeah.
kidding.
No, and it's true because there was a documentary, right? There was a documentary about Scream a few years back, but there isn't, and it's funny because we are what was this Scream 7? We are at a point where there's a lot of films in this, and I looked up to there was a book I said I read about Halloween and the franchise there, and there's other things. There has been obviously people writing articles and pieces and things like that about Scream over the years, but you know it didn't hurt the cover of your book. Didn't hurt the sale, the wanting to read this book. By the way, that cover of your book definitely draws people in.
It's
So
so
that didn't hurt.
cool. It's
Oh,
so cool. I wish I could take like more credit. I have it
yeah,
here, but
yeah.
like I wish I could take more credit for that. My contribution was when they initially sent it over, there wasn't blood on it yet, and I'm like,
Okay.
we need blood. It needs to be
Yes.
spooky.
Yes. Exactly. No, it's great. I think it's one of those things. And it's a um yeah, I'm a graphic designer by trade, so I always say people say don't judge a book by its cover. Yeah, don't judge the quality of a book by its cover, but maybe it does take people a chance to pick it up. If it's front facing at a store or a library or something like that, that cover should pull people in. It's an iconic mask that's been compared to this, but in been the mask of this movie for a long time or this franchise for a long time. So it should pull people in. But with the popcorn, it's just so I don't know. It's just ingenious. Sometimes as an artist, I'm even like, how did someone think about that? Like, how did they do
Right?
that? There's
You
a few
see
artists out
popcorn
there. Yeah,
before
yeah,
you see Ghostface.
yes. And you're like, wait a second. That's the way the mask looks. Yeah, it pulled me right in. But yeah, so how, I mean, you said this, I don't know when you had your baby. So how long were you working on this book?
Oh God. So the if we're counting the proposal,
Hmm.
like 3 years
Okay.
from the time that I actually started working on the proposal to like my last interview.
Hmm.
But 2 years
Okay.
um
Of like
of
actual
just
interviewing
like
people and
interviews and writing and that bit.
it's, I
It
mean,
was a long time.
it is. It's a lot, and I'm the kind of person who wants to get things done and move on, have people see and enjoy my work sooner than later because I don't 2 years is a long time to put something together. But I mean, that's a lot of interviews you did. Did you compile? Did you interview a bunch of people over the years, compile it all, and then start writing, or was this like more of when you could get your interview, you could get it in there, and then you started writing around that?
So I'm an insane person. So the way that I've always worked,
Mm,
and this goes to what I was just talking about, where like anytime I am writing about something as a journalist, I'm not the story. So I
okay.
always start with quotes.
Yeah.
And I go through my interviews and I pull out the things that are either important or emotional or funny or that I just like for whatever reason. And I put them all in a document. And then I organize it in a way that makes narrative sense. And then I write around, paraphrase, can't add context,
Hmm.
etc. I don't know what I thought I was going to do with the book, but I didn't think that would work on the scale of a book.
Hmm.
But that is exactly what I ended up doing. Like I stopped fighting it and just did it. And I used like a million different font colors to keep people separate while I was moving things around. And so I have a massive document that I started with where I split essentially, and tell me if I am going on into too
No,
much
you're good.
detail,
You
but
did.
I basically split each interview into stuff I was going to use and stuff that I probably wasn't going to use, but I didn't want to just like throw away because you never know. Because there were some things where I would talk to somebody, and then 3 months later, somebody else would say something that put one of those rejected quotes in a totally different light.
Mm,
And so I split up some of the interviews
mhm,
before I was done talking to people. And then there were a couple of people I talked to pretty late in the process who I like started writing drafts without. But for the most part, I had all of my interviews done before I really started putting everything together. And I split everything in by movie. So there's
mhm.
a
Yes.
Scream 1 document, Scream 2, and then I split it further based
Hmm.
on, different facets of each movie. Um, and then I just sort of chipped away
Hmm.
until like I focused and focused some more and then rewrote. And like I think the original version where it was quotes that I liked in relatively the order it ended up was like 180,000 words.
I wouldn't have read it. Sorry. I would have
No,
moved
no, no,
on.
no. I'm like, I gotta hit 70, give or take 10. Like,
Yes.
so and then I actually tracked it for a while. I had a document. That was how I was tracking my progress, is I would like keep track. I would look at the word counts of the different
Hmm.
things to see where I was. But yeah, that's pretty much how I did it. And then there were people who I talked to later in the process who sometimes they fit neatly,
Hmm.
sometimes they didn't, and I'm like, this is better, and now I have to rewrite this entire thing. And then I ended up splitting the chapters down smaller than I had originally intended at the advice of my editor. And then she saw the first like half of the book and told me there needed to be more of me in it. She had that feedback too. Um, and so I did that when I
Yeah.
wrote the second half of the
Okay.
book. Um, and then my original ending, like that original last chapter,
Mm.
is gone because that was October
Mm.
2024. And some things have changed since then.
Hmm.
So it was a work in progress. It was like very much a living document
Yeah.
the whole time. I don't know how other people do it. Um, I imagine that there are more efficient ways, but I got to the heart of what I was trying to do, which is making it feel like these people are telling the story.
Hmm. I mean, did you have to at some point, like obviously you mentioned the last chapter being, changed and things like that. Like, did you have to at some point just be like, okay, this is where I have to, like, it doesn't matter if anything changes from this point on. I just have to stop. Like, I can't, like, if all of a sudden news came out that they're like, oh, signed a 3 new movie deal, like, you have to just be like, I'm done. I can't do any more with this franchise right now.
Yeah, I had made the choice fairly early on that I wasn't going to chase like news updates
Okay.
on Scream 7. And so I was a little bit unsure of how I was going to end it until Kevin Williamson signed on to direct.
Okay. Hmm.
And then I was like, thank you,
Yeah.
universe.
Yes.
There is my full circle.
Yep.
I had something similar with Chris Landon because Chris
Yeah.
Landon was an intern
Hmm.
on the screen, the first movie. So there was a similar, although very different full circle kind of
Hmm.
moment going on. So that was already kind of in my brain. But when I found out Kevin was going to direct Scream 7, I was just like, not only is this the best possible thing for this
Yes.
franchise,
Yes.
but like I couldn't have asked for a better
No.
ending.
Nope. That's the thing. It's a perfect thing in that sense. I will say I 100% like really vibed with the it being movie, like broken up in that way, like the chronological order of it all. I don't want people to skip chapters or skip around, but it gives people the opportunity to do that kind of too. Like it wouldn't be like what was Kevin Williamson's experience on Scream, and it has the Scream 7 part and all that. Like it didn't like it wasn't like interviewed by like, oh, let's talk about what people talk about Wes Craven. The breakup of how it is by movie in the beginning to the end allows people to do that, in my opinion. Like if you're like Scream 7 or Scream 6 is my favorite Scream movie, you could go towards the end and be like, okay, I'm going to read that part. Or if you're like, I only want to read about Scream 1, that's fine. But like I said, I don't recommend people doing that because it's all phenomenal. But I'm saying like it gives people that option too, that you're not like, oh, I have to do everything. I mean, there's people out there like if you're a Fast and the Furious fan, and you're like, Tokyo Drift. I don't want to read anything about that. Like you wouldn't have to read about that.
You can
But
skip
like I
ahead.
said, you can skip ahead, and that's what I liked about it. And that's what the essay book I read about why I love horror was like. If you didn't really know the author or care about that author, you could skip to the next essay. It wasn't about interviews with a bunch of people and talking about horror. It was like each individual one was a story, so you can skip ahead. Not like I said, I don't recommend that. I recommend reading the whole thing, but I like that way of going about it too, which was really good about how like you almost did like each movie in a sequel and so on and so forth. It was well done again, and I mean, when the Scream is, I just love Scream so much that reading that first chapter just propelled me into wanting to read the rest of the book too, which is nice because I mean, getting that beginning part and learning about Scream and Scream, the beginning of the franchise and the different changes of the name and all that stuff. Like I didn't know that, which was actually really weird. Again, really weird to me for someone who likes a movie so much that I didn't know much about it, which was awesome. I was like, my wife would like I read in bed and my wife would be like looking over me like, are you still awake? It's like 1 o'clock in the morning. Me with my phone trying to read through the digital copy of this because it was just engrossing. I loved it. It was amazing.
I love to hear it. Somebody told me they skipped ahead and read the West chapter first. And I'm like, I'm cool. Like
Yeah.
I am fine by me.
Well, choose your own adventure. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it is one of those things. The difference between writing something like this, a nonfiction book versus a fiction book, is that ability to kind of do that. You literally read up most book. I mean, you might lose context if you don't know what's going on, but you can't just skip to the middle of a fiction book and be like, "Hey, what's going?" Like you're going to lose a bunch of stuff in that. But like this does give you that ability to kind of move around and do what you want with it. Like I said, I highly recommend that you don't. But like, do you? Do you like the finished product? Of course you
Do
do.
I like the book? Yeah. Yes.
I
Yes.
mean, like I said,
Um,
you laid it out. You had your a bunch of words, you had your quotes and stuff like that. Do you feel like after now, you've obviously read it a few times, you've had people reviewing it, so on and so forth, that you're not at this point going, damn, I really wish I put that quote in there, or things like that. Like, are you at the point now where like this is exactly where I wanted it to be?
I'm happy. Yes. Like obviously I wanted to do a good job. One of the things that I cared about most was like I really wanted Kevin Williamson to like this book.
Mm-hmm.
And he does, thank God. So like that was a big hurdle for me. Like once I cleared that, I like let myself relax and just trust myself a little bit because there is, I don't know a single creative person who doesn't have like at least a little bit of imposter syndrome.
Yes.
And so at some point you have to just like accept the
Mm-hmm.
compliments and be like, okay, I did a good job. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I did a good job. Other people are telling me I did a good job. Like nothing is ever perfect, right? I'm a perfectionist. I try the most I can. Like I you say you like to get through things as quickly as possible and move on to the next. I would literally spend 10 years on this and it would be a totally different book 10 years from now than it was by the time,
Yeah.
but like
Yeah.
that's just kind of the way that I am. Like I will tinker forever, but at some point they take it from you and print
Mm-hmm.
it.
Now you can't do anything
Thankfully.
about it. You can't do anything about it. It's August 19th. It hit the shelves. It's on the shelf. It's in print. Can't change it. You
We
can't go. You
we
can change the digital
actually
version if you want, but
we actually ran into it in the wild. Uh
oh
Not this past weekend, the week before.
yeah,
Because I didn't realize with books like they can put them out early if they get them early.
some stores just like Barnes and Noble and things like that just throw them on the shelves when the books come in like get delivered. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'm doing an event at that Barnes and Noble, but we just had happened to be there on a Sunday with our family, and I was walking through the horror section and I saw like a Halloween board game. I was like, "Oh, that's
Yeah.
kind of cool." And I look up and I'm like,
Wait a second.
"That's my
Someone stole my
book."
cover. No.
And then my kids were with me, which was
Yeah.
really exciting
That's
because they're going to
awesome.
be, in school
Yeah.
tomorrow. But and then we saw somebody buy it.
Yeah.
Like I saw a guy in it in his hand and I'm like looking at him smiling and he looks at me and sees me looking at him. I'm like, I swear I'm not a creeper. I wrote that. And so he met us in the cafe and I like signed it for him.
That's
Hi
awesome.
Bobby, if you're listening.
That's so
His
awesome. That's such a cool thing. I love that, like, because there's like the specific books, like you're talking like your major core books that are out there, like the next in the series, like your Game of Thrones books. Those are like hard street dates. They don't put those on the shelf until like the morning of. But other books I've seen that I've just like there's a book that comes out Tuesday. It was out 2 weeks ago, and I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so weird. I'm like, I live in not rural Maine, but fairly rural Maine. We have a couple of bookstores. It doesn't happen to me that often. It's usually mainly because the book doesn't get to the bookstore until the Tuesday before it drops, just because of the way mail works. But it's so cool to see that out in the wild ahead of time, because yeah, and just to be able to stumble upon it. If you go in there knowing it's in there, it's a little different. But like to be able to go in there and be like, wait a second, I see something.
Even if I had thought to look for it,
Yes.
I, which I wouldn't have because it was
No.
2 weeks before, I
Hmm.
would have looked in the TV and film section, which is all the way in the back.
Hmm.
And like, that's not where it's with, I'm right across from Stephen King, which was like a whole
That's
moment for me. Um, and it was just so cool. It was
that's so cool.
like one of the coolest moments of my entire life.
um, buddy of mine, Adam Caesar, who wrote Clown in the Cornfield. His movie was just out recently, Clown in the Cornfield in the theaters. His book, Clown in the Cornfield, is a young adult horror novel, and it never ends up in the regular horror section. It's always in the young adult section. So every once in a while, he goes into Barnes and Noble, he gets a couple copies and moves them to the horror
I love
section.
it.
He's like, hey, I want people to read this book, and I want people to understand that it's like that borderline. It's young adult, but it's like at the edge of young adult. Man, like that's a as adult a young adult book gets. And he's like, every once in a while, he just moves a couple of copies, like two or three copies, just move a couple of copies over to the horror section, put them in the right spot. But that way, people can stumble upon his book there. So if you ever see it in the TV section and not in the horror section, just go grab a couple copies and move it over. No one's gonna know. But yeah, it's
I love
a
it.
seeing it in the wild, and I get that. I design beer cans for a living, so every once in a while I get that kind of like not knowing our beer is in a specific store that I'm in, and I walk in and I go, wait a second, I see that. That's pretty cool. There's not as many release dates for me, but like it's just kind of cool to see that your work in the wild. It's just cool. We've talked about how great. I love the book. It's a love letter in my opinion to Scream, but not just from you, from the people who made Scream, from it would have been outstanding to be able to have interviewed Wes Craven, but like outside of that, you got a lot of people in this book that were phenomenally interviewed, and the quotes are great and all that stuff. The cover's amazing. Like I said, we already talked about that, but I truly believe, outside of the fact that it was even created in the first place, your biggest get is your narrator for your audiobook. How the hell did you get Roger Jackson to narrate your audiobook?
Um, I asked him. Like he was the only person I wanted. And
Yes.
so like my agent, my editor, and I had like I'm like, what if Roger did the audiobook? And they're like, well, that would be amazing, but like, we'll see. And so I had to wait until a certain point in the process
Yeah.
before I could ask, because my imprint is part of the Penguin Random House family.
Yeah.
So like there are protocols and
Yeah.
stuff. And so as soon as I got the green light, I had a call set with Roger to talk about some Scream 7 stuff
Yeah.
anyway. And once we got through the interview, I was like, okay, so like while I have you,
View
one more
here.
thing. Is there any universe in which you would consider narrating the audiobook? And
Mhm.
he goes, this audiobook? Yeah. Oh yeah, I'd love to. Great. I'm like, was so excited. And he asked if I had heard any of his other like
Yeah.
audiobooks, because he has done others. And I was like,
Mhm.
oh, I listened to the clips, but it just like it was the only thing that made sense to me.
Mhm.
And so the fact that it actually worked out, I'm still so excited. And yeah.
I had mentioned it to a buddy of mine about this because I was talking about this book and how he should read this book when it comes out and so on and so forth. And he's like, does he narrate it in Ghostface voice the whole time? I go, no, it would be amazing if he did that the entire book, except for when it's his quotes. Then it's just in his normal voice. like he's talking about himself. Like if everything else is in Ghostface voice except for Roger Jackson quotes. If Roger Jackson quotes have to be read in his actual real voice. That's not true. He
Oh.
narrates it probably pretty easily, but I mean, he's a voice actor. Like it's one of those things. I've always appreciated when a author narrates their own books if they're very good at doing that. Like there's certain authors that are not very good at public speaking that I don't want to read their audiobook because it's not fluid and so on and so forth. But there's definitely I've read some biographies that were read that were, Kevin Smith's biography is read. He reads it himself, which is really cool because it's like he's talking to you in your car when you're driving. You're like, oh, Kevin's reading me his book. But like this is like outside of you narrating your own book, like, this is like the next best thing in my opinion. Like the most iconic voice from this franchise is the one that's going to be reading this into your ears when you're driving. And so
Yeah.
as much as I want people to buy the book, put it on your shelf, read the book. Maybe also buy the audiobook because like that is an experience I believe I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna read it again when on audiobook because like I just need that experience of Roger Jackson reading me the
Yeah.
book. It's
And I did do the intro, so I
okay.
got
There
the
you
best
go.
of both. I did do part of it because the intro is very personal.
Yes, yes.
Um, so you do get me and Roger. But yeah, I posted a little teaser from the audiobook the other day, and in the caption, I was like, I know I'm supposed to tell you to read this because I wrote it, but like, you should listen to it because Roger's amazing.
Yes. I do love it. I love it because you did like the intro. You're listed as a narrator too, which is always funny because I'm like, well, yeah, you had like what a couple of words at the beginning, but yes, it says Roger Jackson and it says you, which is phenomenal. I met Roger, so I live in right near Bangor, Maine, which is home of Stephen King, or where he used to live. He doesn't actually live here anymore, but his house is here. And he was at Roger came to a small comic convention that we had here, and it was so awesome. I had him sign my Scream VHS, and I met him one time, and he was such a nice gentleman. And so you couldn't be better that he was in this movie and got famous off this movie. No one knows what he looks like. If anybody just watches the movie and hasn't actually met Roger Jackson or seen a picture of him, they're like, I don't know who this voice is. But it's pretty phenomenal to have him actually read your book. That was cool. It was really cool to hear. It's different for like Halloween because so many people have played Michael Myers. The same thing with Jason. Like there's been so many Jasons. There are a couple of like really famous Jasons, but like Roger Jackson is Ghostface. That's amazing. It's such amazing. I can go on and on and on about it. It's such a cool. When I saw that, I was like, no way.
Like all of this, everything you're saying is exactly how I still feel about it.
Like to this, you just have it all. Like people are like you're like doing like making dinner, doing the dishes, whatever. You're gonna have it just on the background, so you can hear Roger Jackson reading your book in the background, right? Like I have a vinyl record on. You're just gonna be listening to Roger Jackson reading your book. No, but yeah, I am a big fan of both. I hybrid read. I do some audiobook. I have a half an hour, 35-minute drive to my office, and so I read like listen to an audiobook and then I'll figure out where I am and I'll go read the physical book and so on and so forth. So I also believe in if you're going to reread something, read it the opposite. So if you listen to an audiobook, reread it in physical copy because it gives you a different experience. And I do that a lot where, I get advanced copies of books. And then when I go to read it again, I'll listen to an audiobook because it is a different experience. And so I could imagine that's a cool experience in its own. And I'm just pumped for you. So yeah, as you can tell, I'm excited too for you. It's not even my book.
I love it.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, but Scream is like I said, it's iconic. It's ongoing right now. It's not. There's been some ups and downs and things like that. Um, is this? Do you like what you did for this like type of book? Are you looking to eventually write a fictional book? Are you looking to do more of this kind of stuff, or is like you did this project because it meant a lot and now it's on to whatever's next?
Great question. Um, I don't know yet. I have
Okay.
an idea for another similar
Hmm.
nonfiction book. I have to talk to the people involved
Hmm.
because that is one thing that like I wouldn't take on another pop culture nonfiction without having people pre-committed
Yeah.
because that was a source of stress. And I got very, very lucky in that William Sherrick, one of the producers of the new Scream movies, was one
Yeah.
of the first people I talked with, and he was super helpful. And Kevin said yes fairly early on and was very helpful. And like the people who were making the movies still could not have been more supportive, but I might not get that lucky again.
Hmm.
And so I would want to make sure that I've got buy-in before I even write the proposal
Hmm.
because it's a lot of work and it is enjoyable work. Like
Hmm.
I loved doing this, but I would only want to do it again because there's not anything that hits that same like I've loved this since I was a teenager
Yeah.
that I would need some stability or some things to lower the stress a little bit
Hmm.
to make it worth it. But I do find my mind going to fiction constantly. So I don't know. All my ideas are fiction. I've got one nonfiction idea that I think would be really, really great that I probably will do next. And I've got probably 15 fiction ideas that I would love to do. But I had never written a book before this.
Yeah.
And so I've shown myself that I can do things I've never done before.
Hmm.
So it's not as much of a hurdle as it would have been prior to writing your favorite scary movie. But there is a part of my head that's like, I feel like even though I'm lovely and clever, I would be really bad at writing dialogue. Like, so we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. It's the benefit you get out of this too is like so now I know who you are because of this book. You know what I mean? Like so Scream pulled me in, right? Because obviously Scream is the focus of this book. But then I learned that I enjoyed your writing style. I enjoyed the book. I enjoyed talking to you. So now if you wrote something, and it came up in my feed, I'd go, oh, I'm gonna take a chance on this, which is kind of cool. It kind of gives you that in. If you wrote a fiction book off the start, it may not have been as much on my radar as this would have been, which is kind of cool. And so you have that ability. But I'd also love to enjoy anything you want to talk about in pop culture because I think you did a great job on this book. But yeah, I understand getting the buy-in first makes sense. It'd be really weird to call back to the Back to the Future reference I made, like to write a Back to the Future story and not get Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd. It would suck at the very beginning, being like, oh, we wrote this book, but we weren't able to get these two people to interview. And then you're like, okay, then what's the point of reading this
Well,
book?
and
No.
it does,
Yeah.
it does happen. Like
Yes.
if I felt like there was one person I couldn't do this without,
Yeah.
and that's Kevin
Yeah.
Williamson. But if he had said no, I still would have been contractually obligated to write a
Hmm.
book about Scream. So like it does happen.
Yep.
And I need to be like I'm not willing to take as much of a risk
On
another time because I don't know
yes.
if I'm going to get that lucky
No.
twice. And I also just do think that people in the Scream universe, it's just like a very truly special group of
Hmm.
wonderful human beings.
Hmm. It's really cool, and this was as good. I love watching documentaries. I'll tell you that much right now on anything. But like this is just like I love, and I've always said to people that you can only watch so much TV. Like there's only you have to sit down and watch this. You can read. Like I was at my camp this weekend. I could sit there on the boat and read a couple of chapters of this, and not to be in front of a screen, right? Like so it's really cool because I love the fact that this could have been you could have pitched this to a movie studio and then make this into a documentary. But the fact that it's in written form, I think is amazing, and I think that's what's cool about it too. It's like you mix it up for those people who want to learn some stuff about Scream. So I mean, it's on the shelves now as of not as of recording this, but as of this episode drops, it's on the shelves. So go get it. If your local bookstore doesn't have it, tell them you want it. Because they can get it. And then there's also options like bookshop.org is a great resource for people to go get, and it supports local bookstores. Or if you want the audiobook narrated by Ashley here and Roger Jackson, there's a Libro FM has it available on there, which means that also, again, it supports local bookstores. But what I always say on the end of these episodes is just get the book. If you have to buy it at the big Amazon store, then buy it on the Amazon store because at least you bought the book. That's my big thing is yes, if you support local, but if you can't, just get the book. I highly recommend reading this book or ask your library to get it. That's huge. So tell your library you want this if you can't afford to buy the book. Tell your library you want it and they'll buy the book and then you can take it out of your library. Sound good?
Sounds good.
There's always people like, I don't want to buy on Amazon. And then they end up not buying the book. And I'm like, well, that's not
And
helpful to anybody.
that's what I've been saying. Just buy it where you buy stuff. You don't have to go out of your normal routine. And libraries are carrying it.
Yes.
Which like I'm so excited. Like it's gonna be in libraries, which is
Yes.
like weirdly nerdily
Yeah.
like
It's
that's
such a
cool.
cool experience. Like I said, I'm pumped for it. I'm pumped for you. When I reached out to ask if I could read this book and so on and so forth, and I immediately was like, oh, I wonder if Ashley would come on the podcast and chat about it because, like I said, I really, 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 really enjoyed this, and I read a lot of fiction, and so reading something like this in between those worlds that I'm in weird places and horror stories. Look at that, you get a partner there.
Felix.
There you go. Um, it breaks up the monotony. Like I said, I'm living in these weird spots that like your horror movies, books that are tending to scare you. And then I have this that I love Scream so much that learning about it was really cool. So anybody who's a Scream fan out there is going to want to read this book. Anybody who's a horror fan out there, highly recommend it. And anybody who wants to learn about Scream or sort of something, this is worth reading because I think it's a well done compilation of interviews and quotes and stories from behind the scenes of a pretty iconic franchise. But Ashley, thank you so much for coming on and talking about your book and so much more here. It was available August 19th at your bookstore, so go buy your favorite scary movie, How the Scream Films Rewrote the Rules of Horror. There you go. I got the whole title in there for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. But thank you so much for coming on, taking the time out of your day to chat with us here on the podcast. And when you write your next book, whether it's fiction, nonfiction, whatever, we'll reach out and we'll chat about that too. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.